All right, we got another interesting interview for you guys. Elliott Morgan's in the house. He's now a contributor at Rebel Headquarters and used to be at SourceFed and a bit of a Jordan Peterson expert.
Oh my God.
That's how I'm gonna paint you. Okay.
A simp, I prefer. I love him to death.
Okay, I already love that. Okay, so, and we're gonna talk about a crisis of imagination. Okay.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, and find out a little bit more about Elliott too. But let's just jump right into Jordan Peterson for a second. So I wanna show you a clip from him on Jubilee and then get your thoughts on it.
Great.
You believe in the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good notion of God?
What do you mean by believe?
Do you think it to be true?
That's the circular definition. What do you mean
How
when
is
you
that
say you
circular?
believe?
How is that circular?
Because you added no content to the answer by substituting the word true and believe.
I said you think it to be true.
All right, so if
What's
you
a belief?
believe something, you stake your life on it.
What do you mean by that?
You live for it and you die for it.
Okay, so you're saying that you don't believe something if you wouldn't die for it?
Not really, no.
Okay, so then,
How would you define belief? Something you say?
Can I explain? Like, I could believe it is the case that this pen exists, but if someone like threatened my life, right, I would lie in order to be able to save my life, right? Like, I think you would do that too. You wouldn't lie to save your
Don't be
life?
so sure.
That's such a classic Jordan Peterson, like no sense, but this faux intellectual mannerisms. Anyway, so what do you make of that?
I mean, first I'm gonna need to know what you mean by what, and the classic Jordan Peterson joke. I mean, honestly, like I study depth psychology. It's very, in some ways, similar to some of the things that Peterson talks about. So some of him, like some of what he says, I kind of understand a little bit. Like I like when he's like, saying what you believe and saying what is true is kind of saying the same thing, I guess. But he talks in this way where it's like you don't need to do this. Like you can just be real with people. And I think that what he's talking about with belief and all this stuff is a pretty basic thing, which is that we don't always know what our beliefs are. They can be operating under the surface a little bit, and they come out in our actions and they come out in the way we speak, and you have that Freudian slip idea. But instead, he just sort of veers off into this thing where it's almost like he's trying to hide the fact that he doesn't even, I think, know what he believes at all. Like he's presenting this very overly simplified argument and trying, like you said, to do it in a way that just sounds really smart. And it's so emphatic. And I think that there's a real turnoff that people have with that, where it's like, how are you so confident? And yet what you're saying it is word salad. And there's a better way, Jordan.
Yeah, no, that's why I feel bad for people who believe in Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson or Douglas Murray.
Yeah.
Like people who are, and their perfect description is faux intellectual, right? Mm-hmm. They do throw a word salad at you, and folks who don't understand what they're saying think, oh, they must be really smart.
Yeah.
And they want to believe them anyway based on something that they're saying.
Yep.
So then that gives them, oh, no, you wouldn't understand. I mean, Jordan Peterson's word salad shows that if you have blue cheese instead of Caesar salad on your word salad, that means you're right. Right. So that I'm totally clear on. And Elliott, I'm with you. I understand. Whenever I see a clip of Jordan Peterson, I'm like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, brother, but it still doesn't make any sense. Okay?
Like you're almost there.
Right. Yeah. You're 100% right. He'll get like, oh, okay, true, and then he'll take the weirdest turn ever, right? So now, because of that, I'm not a Jordan Peterson expert. I barely know anything about the guy, right? All I see is these funny clips where he's either like saying something circular while pretending to be smart or crying, right?
Right, yeah.
But what's his main thing? Why do people follow him? What's his shtick?
I have my own reading on it. Honestly, I think that like, and this is gonna sound critical of the left, I guess, because it kind of is, but I think he offers something that's really needed right now, which is a kind of framework for understanding reality, especially right now when we're kind of living in like a post-truth society. No one knows like up from down. He gives people, especially I think young men, which are I think a demo that have been maybe not embraced so much by the left. He gives them a structure to like work with. I think he also has a very idiosyncratic reading of a lot of, say, Jung's work that is not really like the consensus in that field. And I think that like he he uses these depth psychological insights as a way of propping up hierarchies and kind of essentially strengthening the status quo, rather than like showing that these things actually should break things. You should walk into one of these classes or whatever on this kind of psychology and walk away feeling decentered. And I think Jordan Peterson kind of does the opposite. He goes like, no, I'm gonna tell you using really flowery mythological language why you're already right and why they're wrong and they're the bad guys. And that's like pretty much antithetical to most of depth psychology's
But
work.
Since he's largely indecipherable when he finally gets to his conclusion, who's right and who's wrong? I can't even tell.
It's clever. I mean, I try to do it sometimes with my wife. I'm like, if I keep talking, I can have plausible deniability and I won't be wrong. But she picks up on it. So
yeah. So like, what is the main point? He's like, because when like I said, when I see a clip, I'm like, I understand what you're saying. Although why you reached the conclusion you did is a mystery, because it's a giant leap of logic that makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
But overall theme. What is his main message to young men?
I think it's, it is still clean your room and it is all order. Like if you want to talk archetypal stuff, he gets super into order and chaos, but the whole idea of those two things are that both are necessary at different times and both are more necessary at certain times, but he is so into the order. And I think that young men particularly are like, yes, thank you. And ironically, he's against this like postmodern stuff, but when you listen to him talk, he breaks down every word to the point where you're like, what is belief? What is you? I mean, it's become like a meme almost with him. So he's kind of doing the very thing he preaches against, where he wants like structure and order and things have fixed meanings. It's very essentialist. Women are women and men are men and blah, blah. And it's like, at some point, I think he plays into an already very stressed out demographic of young men who are really feeling fragmented and they're feeling insecure, and he kind of puts a warm blanket over them. And that warm blanket is made up of a bunch of words that sound really pretty.
Yeah, so order is better than chaos, but I also agree with that. That doesn't mean I'm a right winger.
Yeah, that's true. Yep, there you go.
Right, so his point is order is great and you don't have enough order in your life. And that's why you should listen to really rich Republicans who want a tax cut.
I do think there might be a slight thing where he's getting paid a lot of money by a particular right-wing news organization. And so when I watched that video, I was like, I think you might be just trying to hide the fact that you are getting paid and don't want to say anything that's gonna tick off your superiors. But that's my own, that's my like more gossipy.
Okay, last thing I think, he's religious, right?
I don't know. How much of that did you watch? Because I watched it and I was like, I have no idea whether he's religious. I understand what he's getting at. Like he doesn't espouse any kind of firm religious belief per se, but he probably would say he is a religious person in the way he operates in life, and whatever that means.
Whatever the hell that means.
It's there are ways like where I'm like, this is interesting. I know he's getting at something interesting, but then I go like, dude, just say it. And there's a defensiveness I think that pops out with him, where I think Gabor Mate said it best, where there's a kind of repressed anger in him that you can feel. And I think that's very attractive to people who feel that way.
Yeah, so we'll move to the Democrats on the left in 1 second, but I just quick note, Vivek Chibber is an interesting socialist who hates woke politics. Okay.
Who is this?
Vivek Chibber. So he's a professor, I believe, at NYU, and he has a really confronting capitalism podcast and stuff. I just happened to see one episode where he was being interviewed. Anyways, he talks about these fake intellectuals who substitute fancy words for actual ideas. And then you just read and read and read, and it's nothing. It's a big giant nothing burger. And at the end, and that to me, as he was describing it, I'm like, that's Jordan Peterson,
it is.
right? And and Vivek is criticizing the left, but it's true on the left and the right. I mean, the left has Kamala Harris, the right has Jordan Peterson, etc. So, but sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say to your point, like when Jordan Peterson's talking about, well, you can't say that, that's circular logic, and you're saying belief is truth and truth is belief. It's like, that's how all language works though. Like if you open a dictionary, every word, just the definition of it just points to other words. Like it is all
That's how it works, exactly.
So it's a very self-defeating, anyway.
Yeah, but you're now using words.
Yeah, that's not allowed. Not hypotheticals.
What do you mean if you can't, and this is the same thing that Professor Chibber says, if you can't explain it clearly and simply, then you probably don't know what you're talking about.
And you might be selling something.
Yeah, and also that. So what do you think the left should do about, because you're right. I mean, young men are greatly disaffected, and certainly the Democrats are not appealing to them. So what can you do to bring them back to our side?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I was a fan of Jordan Peterson. So I don't want to come off like I came in from the other side of the room and started shouting at him. Like, I really kind of was into that for a while. And he got me into Jung, and then Jung kind of, as I read him, got me out of Jordan Peterson. But like, in doing that, I think I recognized in the left, and I still think this is the case, there's just a real focus, and I think this is incredibly important, on like strategy and on activism and all of these things that we should fight for. However, some of the big spiritual, metaphysical questions around meaning and purpose and values, these are things I think that the left could really benefit from, because I think that they're a little scared to touch those things. They're, I think, as the phrase I remember the late Michael Brooks using, is we're drowning in particularities. And so I think the left needs to like grapple with bigger questions, like questions about like what is going, like kind of loosen the grip a little bit on like, this is what we're all about, and this is what, and if you're not for it and you're against it, it's like, well, why don't you have a conversation about what motivates people? Like, what is the driving forces behind their behavior? I don't see that a ton on the left, and I think that it's leaving a lot on the table for the right to kind of monopolize on.
Yeah, I mean, so my version of that is that I don't like the culture wars, and so and I think the culture wars did a lot of damage in that. Overall, but certainly in that demographic, because a lot of young men, and yes, mainly young white men, but a lot of young black men and the young Latinos that we lost in those elections didn't like being scolded 24/7.
Yeah,
I mean, it's amazing that Democrats have trouble figuring out that people don't like to be scolded.
Yeah. Well, they've gotten so good at it that they're like, this is what we do. Yeah, it is very unfortunate, because I think that there's the frustrations that I feel around the left. I grew up Republican and I grew up conservative, and I feel very passionate about my political opinions now, but I don't feel passionately about communicating them to my fellow like comrades, or for lack of a better term, but like there is a hesitation I feel of going like, I grew up in that, I grew up in Florida, I grew up in the South. I understand a little bit about what that mentality is. And when I talk to people who were steeped on the left, who grew up on the left, I end up going like, oh, there really is a kind of lack of curiosity about where that other side is coming from. And I think that is gonna cause more and more problems as we go down the road.
Yeah, and so I want to turn to a positive message if we can, but I'm gonna build on what you said first, which is, by the way, I also grew up a Republican, right?
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, and but we were not team players. I came when I was 8 to the country, right? We came from Turkey, and my dad was a small business owner, and
Same.
Yeah, and we believed in mainstream media's marketing that Reagan was a cowboy on defending a shining city on a hill, and Democrats were over regulators and over taxers, et cetera. Then you come to find out, no, Republicans are full of crap. All they want is tax cuts for the rich. They never balance the budget. All they do is drive us into wars, et cetera, right? So we got it. So I leave the Republican Party, but at least I know how they talk. I've lived in the real world and not in just political worlds. So when I come over to the Democratic Party, it's not just recently. There's something about the way I communicate that for like Democratic politicians, leaders, et cetera, they viscerally hated what I was saying.
Really?
Yeah, and a lot of the left-wing activists, for sure. Like they never liked me, and I think that it's cultural. I think that they think you speak like a bro. I'm like, okay, and tell me what the downside of that is. And it felt like they were, before we get to the positives, I have one more thing, right?
No, please.
Yeah, because it felt like they were saying that masculinity was all toxic masculinity.
Right.
And what I kept saying back is, no, guys, there's just masculinity that isn't toxic. Like toxic masculinity is an a-hole that goes and beats his wife and thinks he's a tough guy, right? Yeah. That's toxic masculinity. A guy holding a door open just to be polite, whether it's a woman or man or whoever it might be, is not toxic. That's the opposite of toxic, right?
Just being a nice dude.
Yeah, being a nice dude isn't toxic by definition. Anyway, so what's your take on their attack on toxic masculinity, which felt like an attack on all men?
It's the same. I mean, and I still catch myself kind of falling into, I think I've like on a spectrum politically, I've gone, I think most parts of it at this point, and I can still fall into that like very liberal, what place am I, who am I to say as a man what my opinion is on X, Y, and Z? And then I'm like, what do I do? Like I know I'm coming from a good place, and I know I'm coming from like a genuine place. So why am I now feeling like I need to hesitate because someone who is ostensibly on my team is going to like find something? And I think that is, maybe it's overblown. Maybe it's all in our heads, and that maybe
it's no.
And I really don't think it is. And I think you would know.
No, I know for a fact. If you say it and you say something that they think is off by 3%, they'll call you a fascist, racist Nazi, right? Yeah. And so that part of the party drove everyone away. I mean, after you call 80% of the country fascist, you're down to 20%. You can't win elections.
It is fascinating to see, like, because I remember going, is it going to keep going this way? And it does seem like there is a kind of shift happening where that sort of super identitarian way of looking at things. I could be wrong. It's totally my opinion. It does seem to be kind of breaking down a little bit, thankfully. Like, I saw this commercial last night that was like kind of making fun of, I think it was like for soap or something. It was making fun of that kind of, it was a pony, I think, and it was like, I'm not a one-trick pony. They were making fun of the Twitter angry liberal person, basically. And I was like, interesting that like a corporation that's selling some whatever product it is, it's now become okay to kind of make fun of that archetype of the person, where actually don't say that. Actually, and it's like, oh, this is like shifting, because I remember 10 years ago that I don't think would have been okay at all. It was all about breaking everything down, talking about your differences, and completely, rejecting any kind of universalist approach to anything.
Yeah, 100%. And so look, they did do all that canceling. They did drive people away. And you said, who am I? You were worried that who am I to say this?
Yeah.
I just want to tell the audience out there, I don't care if you're right, left, middle. I don't care, male, female, gender identity. Race. I don't care. You're somebody, and your opinion is also worth something. So don't ever listen to anyone who says, "Who are you to say this?" You're you. Or they're them. They don't have any special authority over you. Who are they? Who are they? And by the way, those are usually the most arrogant people on earth.
Yeah.
Who's like, oh, I speak for, why do you speak for people? You don't. The polling indicates that those like cultural warrior, super left-wing activists don't speak for the majority of Democrats. The majority of Democrats, let alone everyone else, reject them. And what I'm saying is, welcome everybody into the Democratic Party. You got a different idea? Let's talk it out. Who cares? Let's figure it out, right? Like especially if you open mind, open hearts. If you have an open heart and you actually want to help. If you don't, there's nothing we could do. There's another party for that. That's the Republican Party, right? If you love wars and you think that only the rich should have things, and we should cut Medicaid, and we shouldn't have paid family leave, and we should have lower wages, etc. You're in luck. They made a whole party for that. It's called Republicans, okay? So, anyways,
you're gonna love them.
Yeah, you're gonna love that. Anything for the average American? No way, no way. But don't worry, populist Trump came in and fixed. Oh, right, no, he didn't. He didn't. Yeah. $4 trillion tax cut.
You got rid of that cancer research, though, right?
Yeah. Thank God we don't have the cancer research anymore. Yeah. Anyways, so all right. So what's a positive message for young men that could invite them into the Democratic Party?
I think a positive message for young men that could invite them into the Democratic Party would be, it's really fun and you get to learn a lot. And also you get to meet new people. That's one of the things that I always go back to, where when you get in these kind of culture war conversations, it's just like, do you know these people? Like, do you know, have you met the very people that you are kind of rejecting? And then you find out that they have their own history as a people, they have their own, struggles that they're going through. And it kind of coalesces into like one singular thing where you can get excited about stuff. And I do think that there's an inherently, maybe unconscious defensiveness in a lot of like the right-wing media sphere. There is this thing, I think they feel pressure. Like I think they feel like they're no longer speaking, they're certain if they ever were speaking truth to power, but like I think that there's a sense that we're maybe losing the grip a little bit on young men specifically. And I can only hope that's the case. That might be my own copium, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, well, look, the other thing we do is actually propose economic policies that they would love. So they can't afford housing. Everybody knows they can't afford housing, right? Men, women, young people overall can't afford it. Why don't we say, like what's in the populist plank? Ban private equity from buying residential real estate so the housing prices go down. Why don't we lift up minimum wage so it pushes up wages for other people? And that has a material effect on their lives.
And it's like, it also can give them an enemy on like if you want to talk the mythological kind of stuff, like give them someone to get angry at. Give them someone that they can point to and go, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. My life should be better on a material level. And oh, look at that. All the money keeps floating upward, and it doesn't take too long to Google charts and be like, oh yeah, there it is. And it's been happening since however many decades, since neoliberalism or whatever. I mean, there's no shortage of people and scholars who have in good faith laid out exactly what's going on. And I think young men on the right would benefit from diving into that rather than hearing it filtered through like whoever is on the Joe Rogan podcast. Nothing against the Joe Rogan.
Yeah, no, totally. So you say America has a crisis of imagination.
Yeah.
So what does that mean and how do you fix it?
I think we're living entirely in this very fragmented post-truth world. I think that people have no clue like what to grab hold of. And I think that the failure of imagination is basically saying, especially on the left, and I think our past like presidential tickets would attest to this, or ballots. Like there is a fear on both sides, a universal fear in America, I think, of where we're headed, and there's no set plan, and there's no script right now. And so I think that what we right now need to do on the left, especially, is give people a script and go, you know what? That's actually part of it. This absurd stuff that we're living in is part of where we're headed, and you either need to buckle up or get ready because you're gonna get thrown out of the car. But in terms of imagination, I think policy-wise, yeah, we have great policies, I think, on the left. Universal healthcare is a great policy. I don't know that it's being packaged the right way. I don't know that it's ultimately gonna come down to rhetoric and how these things are communicated, because I do think that most of us are all still kind of aiming for the same goal, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. So, for example, when I was on Patrick Bet-David's show, that's a conservative show, I made a pitch for paid family leave, which was, hey, don't we want moms to have more kids? I know the right wing does. I'm indifferent, but I know I want them.
Speaking there,
yeah. I know I want moms to be able to have at least 12 weeks off to bond with their kid.
Yep.
Even if they have more kids, less kids, I don't care. But with the kids they do have, I want them to bond. And the hosts were like, yeah, we do want moms to have more kids. Yeah, we do want them to bond. And then they polled their audience. 75% of them wanted paid family leave.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
What are the odds?
Yeah. Now instead of yelling at them and instead of calling them fascists, I listened and I looked at the polling, and the magic trick was they already agreed. Right?
Yeah.
You just had to say it in their language. Like they forget. I feel like sometimes people on the left forget that the Republican Party has been lying to those people for their entire lives, right? And right-wing media has been lying to them their entire lives. So they don't even know that there is such a thing as paid family leave.
Right.
They don't even know that they would actually like it.
Yeah.
Right? So,
or that it's attainable. Like easily attainable. And we are like, you can play in also to, and not in I think you have to be careful about not doing it in like a contrived way, but patriotism is a real thing. And I think that like there are ways to embrace patriotism on the left. And like, wouldn't it be great as a country if we took care of our sick? And wouldn't it be great if we were the country that made it so that like, even if it was mental health care you were taken care of. If it was you just had a new kid, regardless of whether you're the mom or the dad, you can have some time off so that like you're saying you can bond and actually form that, like we can do that as a country. And I think, yeah, patriotism is another thing where the left is like, well, we don't talk about
that. No, that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
No, I love America. My family came to America because I love it, and it's amazing. And does it have downsides? Of course. Should the right wing rewrite our history to erase the downsides? No,
maybe not.
No, right? But that doesn't mean that you don't love the idea of equality of opportunity and freedom and hope, and that those are good ideals to strive for.
Absolutely.
and to keep fixing things as we go along. And so lastly, I would say, like on America First as an example, I don't mind that. So I mind it if it causes harm to other countries, if it causes harm to other people. But if you frame that as, wait, shouldn't we take care of our citizens before we send 20 billion over to Israel or whoever else to have more wars and more conflict, et cetera, which is really the military-industrial complex getting richer and fatter, right? And so isn't it true that Americans should be first rather than corporate donors?
Yeah, like Americans, not America. And it's also, even if you're saying America first, it's not America only. Like it's just really a strategy thing. It's a logistics thing. Like you're gonna take care of everyone here to the best of our ability, and then we're gonna worry about everybody else, but not in this way where you hear JD Vance talk about it, where it's like, well, you care about your family and then you just don't care about anybody else, or whatever he was trying to do with that whole thing that he felt very passionate about. But yeah, I think it is about rhetoric, and I think it is about respecting each other on some kind of human level, because we're experiencing a massive level of social fragmentation, and I don't see that getting any better unless individuals make like conscious decisions to change it.
Yeah, last two things on that is totally. First, so when somebody says America first, let's hold off on assuming that they're evil. And
maybe,
yeah, and like so, and maybe they are though. By the way, right? Yeah. They might think, oh, I don't care if you're not an American citizen. I want you in a dungeon in El Salvador, right? Okay, I got you, but let's find out first. Maybe they mean something else. And the second thing I would say is flip the rhetoric on them, right? So, are you really America first? Like, or are you Israel first, or are you
military-industrial complex?
Defense contractors first, oil companies first, big pharma first, right? And are you really looking into your Republican politicians? Are we looking into our Democratic politicians?
Right.
And seeing, are they Americans first? I like this. We came up with a thing. I like Americans first.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay, I'm gonna run with that one.
Some bumper stickers.
Okay, Americans first, not donors first, right?
That'd be nice.
Yeah, and so you flip, and we're not doing any kind of magic trick. They already agree. They don't want the donors to rule our lives, right? None of the American citizens do. It's the media and the politicians that get us to fight each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we all agree, and it doesn't mean that the right wing are all angels or the left wing are all angels. It just means we're all human beings, and if we talk to one another, we might be surprised at how much we agree on some issues.
It's almost like it's by design, and they're making us argue with each other just so they can distract from the fact that they're pilfering us basically. So
no, and that $4 trillion tax bill is not big or beautiful. It's just a robbery.
Yep.
Okay. Everybody check out Elliott on Rebel HQ. Obviously does really smart commentary, and I appreciate it. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much, man.
All right, great to have you as part of the team.
Thank you.
All right.